What's up guys, FLOWSHIZZLE here, and this is your Viper main's guide to Fracture. Now the reason why I didn't do Breeze is specifically because my Breeze setup isn't exactly to my liking yet. And I don't want to pass on any of my setups or gameplay until I feel like it can actually be guaranteed to help you out. So that's going to be a little delayed while I test a few things out. So going out to Fracture, this is the newest map. It's one of the weirdest ones, having basically two ways to hit both sites completely differently. There is no mid on this map, so basically you split from completely different areas, and this makes it really awkward as a defender to really defend both things. But Viper has a kit that allows her to split up both her wall and her orb that kind of gives her an advantage over other agents. Like always, if you enjoyed the video, please hit the subscribe icon and hit that like button for me. It really helps me out more than you know and really entices me to continue making this content for you guys. I appreciate all the support. Now on to the guide. We're going to start off by asking the question, which site should Viper be playing? And in my personal opinion, I believe that A site generally works better for Viper, as she's able to split up her utility a little bit better, and she does it better than most other agents can. So other agents would prefer to be toward the B side where they have more wiggle room. That's your duelist, because they can take more gunfights. You can also do it toward the A main area, but I feel like Viper has a lot more stall toward A, and on B are more toward fast executes. Being able to lock down one of the sites with only one agent and constantly be able to have 3 to 4 players on the other side generally has more success. So to start off, my Viper's wall goes like this. It's a diagonal wall that tries to connect from A main to this elbow to the back of here. Basically, you want to split up A main hallway into 3 chunks, and I'll explain that in just 1 second. Throwing your wall something like this makes it really awkward for attackers to really take this area. When the wall goes up, they have to push through 1 chunk into the second chunk, and then after clearing all this, then they have to push through to A main, making it every time they push through a risk that they're going to need to take. This also allows you to play multi-level, meaning that you can actually stop A pushes in certain amounts of levels without conceding too much ground every time you're pushed off an angle. What I mean by this is you throw up your wall right off the bat and you're playing to see if there's any util being used, and if there is, you're dropping this molly, making this very uncomfortable for any attackers to want to come through. If you get flashed off or something and they decide to push, you can continue backing up and then use this edge of the wall to be able to hold sight as a last defense. This really gives you an ability to play aggressive, really entice them to use some sort of utility to push you off, meaning that if they use utility here, they won't be able to use it later on when they're trying to hit the site. A flash used here is a flash not used later. This also allows you to essentially get this orb for free. If you don't feel like they're here, you can grab the orb and you will be all set. What other uses does this wall have? Sometimes you'll have an opera in A main opping this entire cross, and basically I won't be putting up my wall until they shoot. After they shoot, I'll put up the wall, assuming they're gonna back up to site, and this is something I would obviously calm with my teammate beforehand, and then basically I'm waiting for them to draw this initial aggro where they'll op someone or maybe just get away. The attacking team is gonna start pushing, and then I'm gonna try to catch them off guard here. Basically using this door, I'll put up the wall after my teammate has shot the bullet, and then now I hear them running. I'm gonna drop the wall, shoot the molly, and then now I'm going to try to catch off players that don't expect this door to be randomly open. You can play this from up here, but the idea is to see if you can get an extra cheeky kill before anyone really expects it. Lastly, this wall allows you to get aggressive. And what do I mean by this is, like, what if they're not hitting A? Well, then you can use this wall to actually sneakily get out toward their spawn. I'm going to throw up this wall. I don't hear anything here. There hasn't been any noise, and there's been a significant amount of noise made toward the B side. So I can clear these angles individually, make sure that no one's holding it. And while this wall is up, I can even cross toward the back of site while it's behind these boxes. Now basically what you really want to be worried about is some sort of chamber utility or some sort of trip watching, flank watching thing. But a lot of the times it's worth it, and sometimes if they start putting their chamber util here, you can actually adjust your wall later in the round to make sure that your wall covers it and you can even sneak by it. If they don't have a flank watcher, you continue flanking. If they do, you can kind of just cut them off there, basically tucking behind this box right here and then just holding for any of the rotates out. Calming to your teammates, they're not A main, they're probably not going A. Have your teammates rotate toward B, making B heavily either defended or they're not enticed to push it. And if they're not enticed to push it, where are they gonna go? They're gonna go back to A, right exactly where you're waiting, where you'll have early comms based on noise that they're running, and you'll have an easy time trying to get multiple frags, as they're probably not gonna expect you to be this far up. You're going to be using your Viper Orb for Dish, and normally I just use this thick beam right here in the center as a guideline to see where the edge of the smoke is. When you pop it, it pretty much is as perfect as it really realistically needs to be, and it kind of makes it really unenticing for anyone to really drop out. I will say though, there is a play here that I want to explain that you might be able to use as you're defending A site, and that's when you get aggro with a teammate towards Dish. Dish gives you a lot of room to work with as you have two areas to peek, one from the right and one from the left. So instead of actually throwing this orb right off the bat and keeping it here when I'm getting aggro, I'll keep it on my body. Now, why does this matter? So imagine I am pushing with my Reyna or my Jet, and we're trying to get early Dish control, see if you can get a pick. I keep my orb under the premise of two situations. One is that it goes exactly like we planned and there's nobody here. But guess what? A lot of the times there is some sort of utility that is being used to hold the flank, and that's where this orb comes in handy. I'll tell my teammate to purposely play slow. We'll look for some sort of chamber utility, maybe alarm bot. And if I see it, I'm going to drop my orb on it. For example, if it was in this corner, and we'll smoke it out, and then we can continue flanking. This will kind of give you a one-off chance because that orb at the default spot is going to do nothing for you if they are actually not there. If you're wondering what if they are there, well, that's perfect. Obviously, we would have shown some sort of presence, and if we decided to fight and we're losing, for example, my teammates gets picked and I want to play safe again, as I'm running back, I can drop the orb on the normal spot, and now I can use it to defend the site. So keeping this here gave me the extra flexibility of countering some sort of flank watching utility without really compromising my ability to defend the A site. So with the default setup on A, this is how I normally play. I'll usually decide to just anchor on site unless for some reason I decide not to. Usually that'll be a judgment call off of maybe some sort of ult usage or just in general some sort of team play that might be able to be done if I'm playing off site. But if not, I'll usually just default to playing on site. And usually I'll just play off of sound, starting aggro with A main until I get pushed off the angle, and when I retreat onto site, throwing up this wall. With this wall, normally it'll just stall out any sort of push or aggression from the attackers. They usually want to wait till the wall is up before really wanting to run through. When the wall's gas starts running out, I'll drop a molly and then turn off my wall. Essentially, this molly will kind of stall for the wall, and I'll drop a second one when that one fades just to kind of ensure that they don't rush while the wall is down. After this, I can kind of throw up my wall as needed, and then this way I can kind of cycle through using my mollies, putting up the wall, dropping the wall, using more mollies, getting more gas, and this way I can buy enough time for my teammates to rotate over if they're really just kind of sitting outside of it. Now, one of the best spots on site is just the stairs area. The reason being is that you can fight the A main push out really easily, giving you kind of a weird off angle because normally headshot level is here. With the stairs, it now varies all the way up here, and it depends basically on every single step that you're on is going to throw off the headshot angle even more. So being somewhere here allows you to kind of throw off your headshot angle for the A main rush, but even if they're not coming out A main, you can fight toward Dish by just coming up here. Being in this connector area means that you can choose between being bottom site and top site, and I like the flexibility that this gives me, allowing me to pivot between fighting A main, fighting Dish, and then fighting A main again. Now keep in mind that Dish is usually of the two the least kind of worrisome one because Dish is so dangerous to come out of. You have to see it from the attacker's perspective that they literally have to be mid-air running through a gas orb to be able to kind of come onto the ground where they can actually shoot you. That means there will always be some sort of sound cue that will announce whether they're out, drop, or not, and usually this is easier for your teammates from spawn, sand, top rope to kind of spot for you. And if you play a position like this, generally you're not in direct line of sight out of anyone dropping out of Dish, so you're usually relatively okay. Focus on the A main and then deal with the Dish players as they're coming out, or if you have the luxury when this wall is up or when this is mollied, you can kind of swing toward this as well. Moving on to the B site, how should you really be defending? And normally I don't recommend going B, although you can. Viper is very strong on either site as she's just really good as a defender in general. But if you really want to, I would normally only recommend this under the preface of you getting aggressive. Throwing a wall like this makes it really awkward for the attackers to really want to work around it because, well, you can kind of clear one side with your teammates, maybe a double or triple push here, and then you can kind of work up towards spawn. It is a little bit telegraphed, which is why I generally don't like playing Viper on B. There's not really any good ways to use her wall. You Can use her orb though, and that's what I would do if I was recommending playing the B site. Basically, I would have my wall doing the same thing at A, throwing up the wall, something like this, for my teammates at A, and then going over to B early in the round before the barriers are dropped, and then throwing my orb somewhere on site. Normally I have two decisions, one either out here to hold out the push. I'll usually do this if I have some sort of chamber util, usually KJ util, or something that's around this area so I can hold that choke point. But in the case that I don't, I'll actually hold it slightly back, and then I can have it somewhere on the stairs like this, and have it so that I can anchor from on site with another teammate. It really depends how I'm feeling that round and what type of executes they've been doing. If they've just been dashing out a lot, this is probably what I'd be doing. But anyway, you do really want to be careful that if you have teammates somewhere canteen like this and they're not smoked off, don't make their life easier by smoking off the site swing for them. They're now going to know that they don't need to be worried about this, and then are going to just focus on your teammates. If you keep this up, it makes them actually more viable to death because they're now worried about way more angles than they were expecting before. But obviously this is very commonly smoked, so a lot of the times I'll just throw it up, and I'll sometimes even get aggressive into the smoke, seeing if I can catch a one-off before falling back onto site and dropping a molly to make sure no one else pushes. The idea here is to stall for as long as possible, but obviously kills matter. Needing to get one, likely two, is the goal. So if you can get two, generally you've done your job. Now let's go on to the attacking side. How do you hit the A site? Well, the one that I've seen a lot of people do that I don't really like is to throw a wall, something like this. Basically, the goal is to hit the top of rope and a link or CT spawn and get a wall going like that. That helps you get out from sand and take the site. So this kind of works, but sometimes it leaves weird gaps that like people aren't really expecting. The wall just isn't the best utility for this. Sometimes you can get by if they just don't have a sand player, but you can't always assume that. So for my executes, I have a combination of orb and wall. I'll line myself up by squeezing myself into this corner, and I'm going to use the dot above the Q under my ult orb icon on the bottom left of the HUD and line it up with this gray bar right here. So this gray bar, you're going to aim a little bit to the right around here, and basically you're going to see I'm going to put the dot of my Q, and I'm just going to throw. It's a pretty close, you have very little leeway for this, but it will land in the general area. You're going to see it's like literally right on the edge, and when you pop it, it'll cover the entire thing. After throwing the orb, I'll walk out with my teammates, have my teammates take control of sand by popping it, and then they'll like flash through or run through, and then once they start taking it, I'll throw my wall like this and have them take through sand, coming out like this. They will have to run through my wall, but in general it's worth it at the same time as the A main push comes out. This orb is something I like to default very commonly because I don't really find it as useful on post plant. It is okay, but a lot of times it's a little bit unnecessary, and I like this idea that I can always at a moment's notice be able to hit the A site. On the B site, the orb's a little less necessary, but on the A site, it definitely does have that added benefit of being able to come out of drop more easily. So what I mean by this is when you come out of drop, if you don't have an orb like that, you can get shot from here as well as here. And while the wall is good and all, you still can get shot from up here. So that's the one weakness. So that's why comboing with this instantly sets up for an A hit. As I'm coming onto site, I'm making sure I'm not the first one in, usually the second or third one, and I'm gonna try to drop some sort of molly that makes it really awkward and sees if I can just get a tag on someone that's on site. What I mean by this is some people would just like to be playing like somewhere on here and try to swing off of some sort of contact here. By throwing this molly, even if it doesn't hit somebody, it makes it very awkward for anyone to play. Like for example, if I'm here, I'm like, okay, well I can't swing this way, and now I have to swing around the back, and even just getting touched by it will make it significantly easier on the site hit, because when you're running and you just hit like maybe 2 shots with them, they're pretty much dead with a Viper vulnerable effect. So what if I don't want to take all of site? Now the decision making process for this would be I have less players than the enemy, we're not trying to make any aggro moves, we're trying to play post plant, we're trying to stay alive essentially, more than trying to take more space. So in that case, I would pretty much want to throw something safer. Basically, I'm using this box as a guideline because I don't want someone to camp right next to it. So basically, I'll throw something like this as I'm running out. And this is a little extra work, and it doesn't do as much as it's not fully necessary, but sometimes I will take the extra effort if I know site is clear and I have a teammate that's in front of me. Otherwise, if we're just going to go by the standard one, just throw something like this. That'll do pretty much the same entire job, and it'll allow your teammates to drop out with the bonus of this orb. Get out safely and clear the site with your teammates. Rather than have it back here, this gives the additional spots of here and the spawn run out, any rotates that are coming in that decide to run through the smoke. Those are also people that you would need to be dealing with, but when you have a shallower wall here, you don't have to be dealing with it as much. What if you want to be going through dish? Well, then in this case, my site execute looks like this. I'm coming to this corner, wedging myself up against it. I'm looking for this gray line that's on the bottom left corner of this panel right here next to this empty one, and then I'm just going to take a step and throw. And then basically it'll soar over, it'll fly over, and it lands perfectly, working for you to come out safely, and essentially does the same thing as the other orb. As for how you're coming out, if I have sand players, I'll aim to wall off CT. If I don't, then I'm going to aim to wall off a little bit closer, something like this. This way I can drop safely after just clearing this one spot and then help my team fight out. Just make sure that this edge of the smoke right here doesn't affect your teammates taking A main. So make sure your timing is properly, because if they're fighting here and you decide to wall them off, I'd be a little mad too. But besides that, make sure that you clear as much as you can. If you can get some sort of flash to help jump down on site, that's perfect. For A, you just want to make sure that you're also not getting swung, but you have the added benefit of that with the barriers placement, you can actually get here before any sniper does. You just want to make sure that you usually want to clear this with 2 players. You can sometimes clear this alone, but you have to be completely silent, as this is very risky to do it out loud when you're running. Because guess what? There are 2 angles that they can swing from. You are only able to watch one at a time. So being able to slowly clear so that they don't know that you're actually out is very important. Pretty much after you clear dish, you have a pretty easy setup for the A site. Now it's all timing based on where your teammates are and when they're ready to go. You already showed you the lineup, and then you can kind of get everything going after that. For A main, basically, besides the Opera, which is normally here, you want to be very aware of Breach stuns. Breach is a very common agent on this map, specifically because of his util and his ability to break KJ util. So Breach's concuss hits an entire lane. Basically, you want to make sure that they love to play this area, because you can stun this area, which is very high traffic, as well as flash and swing through the door. It's also very good, as well as aftershock. Basically, all his util can go through this little corner alleyway. That's what you want to be aware of, and that's also the utility you want to bait out. Basically, after swinging something like this, you want to see if you can kind of bait out some sort of concuss early in the round, so you can kind of fight it off, so that you don't have to deal with it later. But always remember that that is something that can happen, and if Breach has an ult, I might recommend you not go to this site, or at least play very, very carefully. Setting up here is a lot easier than on the other site, because you can do this from safety right off the barrier drop. But after this, you're going to want to take control of some sort of area. So usually A main is a good area to take control of. And once you have it, you can kind of work back and kind of go back to the other side if you want to throw a fake, or you can just execute from there on. For the attack playstyles, this is what you pretty much need to be aware of. Most of it is being aware of Operas, as they're very prominent on this map. Basically here, sometimes I'll like to molly. If it's common enough that they're push it, just throw a molly there to cross safely toward this area. And then basically after that, you're just going to try to work some sort of angle, making sure that you're not getting picked by a sniper, or if they are there, that you're trying to work around them. So if there is a sniper here, there's realistically not much you can do, and in general, you really want to go more toward arcade. Arcade gives you more room to work with, and you're basically trying to clear these close angles. Basically, once you've crossed back here, it becomes much more favorable to Phantoms and Vandals because you're close range. And then as you get more onto site, then you can get ready to hit. Just be ready and watch the minimap. Know where your teammates are to be able to throw up the wall at the exact right time. As you're hitting site, I want you guys to know that I am very much in the boat where I believe that you should just use most of your mollies unless you have a specific reason or a niche case for post-plant. You should use your mollies to take site. Now, what I mean by this is that if you use your mollies and you're saving for post-plant, that relies on a few scenarios going well. Number one, you get onto site safely. Number two is that you and your teammates need to be able to stall for long enough that your mollies actually matter. What I mean by this, there's a 3v5 and there's some people on site and you lose a player or two to that. Guess what? I doubt your molly is going to win that round for you. You're probably not going to win by post-plant at that point. So, meaning that if you find that I need to get kills, then chances are you should use your mollies to help secure the site more safely. Maybe you don't lose that player getting onto site because you mollied someone. And that's a lot better than you having an extra molly that you play in a post-plant with one player down. Remember, if you can hold the site, you don't need to play post-plant. How I'll use my mollies, I'll usually aim for behind dice, and I'll just bank something off like that. that gets into the corner. It doesn't have to be very perfect. It just makes it very, very awkward for anyone to just kind of sit there. If it tags them as you're running up, it's going to be a much easier kill as they're vulnerable. That's like a 2 to 3 bullet body shot, and you're perfectly fine. After getting on site, I will go toward tower, or I'll stay on site, throw an orb, something like I would on the defense, and because now the roles have reversed, now you're just defending. Careful, this is a very, very common spot in the back, and I've gotten mollied, pulled, concussed, aftershocked, everything in the book to clear this out. So make sure that you don't always do this all the time. Now, if you're attacking from arcade, it's relatively the same thing. Basically, you want to be worried about is here, here, and here. Obviously, you're not usually the first one to go in, but getting good at jiggle peeking means you have a decent tool to use to go against offers. Make sure that the better you get is by understanding how much of your body is sticking out, and it will help significantly to clear out these pesky angles. Doing something like this will make it very hard for you to get shot, yet you can clear it and see if anyone's there. After you bait out the shot, you have a much easier time swinging out after. So let's talk about using your ult on the attack side, and I'm always going to recommend this on pretty much every time you're attacking as Viper. Use your ult to pretty much get onto site rather than just using it to hold on site. What I mean by this is I see way too many people just ulting like deep site. And what this does is it isolates you from any help from any of the longer angles. So basically your long players that are hiding in A main now can't help you. And there's a gap here where the defenders can kind of like work around to see if they can find anybody else. And they'll try to kill everyone on the outside of the gas before trying to deal with you on the inside. So basically, they can't help you, you can't help them. It works as a double-edged sword, and it works against you. Instead, use your ult to get onto site. Doing something like this allows your teammates to get onto site relatively safely, makes site much more easy to clear, and then once you get the plant off, guess what? You can still stay in your Viper ult. As long as you plant near an ult area, it's perfectly fine, and you can play with your teammates that are in the ult and out of the ult together. And now you guys are able to transfer between, like for example, if I start shooting here and I'm getting overwhelmed, I can run back into the ult to play more safely. This gives me this much space rather than 2 isolated areas. The same issue is for drop, especially since drop is a lot more dangerous to come out. This makes it much easier. You can drop more safely, don't have to worry about getting shot as you drop with the height advantage. And now you can clear it on site as your A main players are coming out, clear together, and you guys will be all set. In the post plant, you can cut back here, you can hide here, make it really awkward because I really doubt 5 people are just gonna skirt along the edge. Most of the time, at least 1 or 2 will feel the need to really clear this Viper ult since it's such a big hassle. It makes the angles that they take very, very prominent. Like if they haven't come through the ult, then you know that they can only come from this one spot that is not in the ult. Attack side ults are the same. I would probably ult around from this area to try to get across this dangerous area as easily as possible. Allows you, usually it wraps around this, so what I mean by this is, let's look.
Don't get in my way.
Let's look. There we go. Yep, it allows you to wrap the backside pretty easily. You can kind of clear all of this together. Now you created a bridge between long and sight that the enemy is going to find really hard to really want to clear. And it's gonna make the entire retake a little more awkward, especially if you combo your util, something like this, and then maybe even the default wall like this. This makes it super awkward as they don't really have much space to work with. Now, general tips from the map is don't be afraid to flank. As much as it is hard for the defenders to hold from so many angles, it's hard for an attacker to hold that as a default as well. Getting aggressive in different areas of the map means that you will slow down the attacker's push, because they always have to be wary that, hey, we have to hold this for a certain amount of time. Otherwise, if they don't hear anything, they'll flank. So then in that case, what do the attackers have to do? They have to slow down the round, which generally favors the defenders. Being willing to get aggressive on certain rounds when you feel like you need to make a play, and understanding that playing defensively and playing standard is not always the best bet will set you up to win more rounds. A second tip is that remember, simplify the round. A lot of times people freak out when they're getting rushed onto site, but if in their mind they were remembering, hey, I just need to get 1, you will find it so much easier just to focus on that 1 guy and melt him down rather than trying to figure out how you can magnificently defend against 5 people. That's very hard, but guess what? In both cases, you need to start with 1. So going for one and not thinking too far after that will significantly calm your nerves, and then your body will kind of autopilot after that. This is also always another option, which is to not drop your wall. Depending on the rank you are at and depending on the playstyle your teammates have, playing flexibly makes a lot more sense almost all the time in ranked matchmaking. Now, the reason I say this is that if the team is rushing B and you put your sick ass A main wall down all the time, but they never go A, then it doesn't matter. Doing things like, hey, I'm gonna wait till I hear noise A main before dropping the wall so I can keep it, so if they end up going B like I think, I can use it for retake, is a much better plan. If the enemy is dumb, there's no point in trying to play around their smart plays because they don't have any. Dumb it down, play simple, think on the fly, and think outside the box. Don't feel so trapped by what you think is good. Try out some new stuff. There is this one way you can kind of throw, which is just aim for the tan line and you can throw it and it's on the inside and it allows you to give a one way towards a main, and this is pretty solid, but the awkward part is it makes the drop area very weird to do. This was found from Keo, I believe, and you can use it. I don't like to use it because I feel like I like the wall a main better, and this is more of a latch ditch. If I were to do this, I'd probably have both the wall and the orb here, and then I would need some sort of utility to watch my drop for me. Drop is a lesser played part of the map, so it's kind of okay to do that. Anyways, that pretty much wraps up this Viper guide. I know it's a slightly shorter, but currently with the meta on Fracture, it's kind of pretty fast and simple. There's really not much else you have to do. It really relies on you getting your one and getting your trade frags, playing together and playing properly, abusing more sections of the map than just one or two, and really playing around that. Having fast rotates, good stall will make you a significantly better Viper player on this map, so I hope this guide helps. If you didn't know, I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4 p.m. EST. If you want to watch some Viper, Astra, and Omen gameplay, come swing by there. That's pretty much all I play. And as if I needed to say it again, if you like the content, hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to me. My goal by the end of the year is to hit 100K, and if there's any content that you want to see me put out for you guys, don't hesitate, comment down below, let me know. As always, thank you for watching, and peace out.